January on the actual costing proposal. And tonight we're here just to discuss the OPP billing model. So it's not going to be as long, which is probably a good thing. It's going to be relatively short. But we will cover off the OPP billing model. And just to provide you with a bit of an overview, it can be a little complicated. So I will try my best to break it down for you. And as I say, if there's anything, any questions, are for sure chime in at any time. Or if you want to leave it to the end, that's perfectly fine. So again, the objective here is to discuss the billing model. Just to keep everyone as a reminder, when municipalities do make that decision, if they make that decision to go to the OPP, again, they go into that, what we had termed as the transition contract. This billing model does not come into play until after that transition contract is finished. So just as a reminder for people, this would be for municipalities who are already into the billing model and who are not under that transition contract situation. So a bit of an outline. We'll cover off a bit of the OPP annual expenditures, provide some details, give you some numbers, and we'll go into the billing model components. So these figures are based on the 2017-2018 actuals. And this pie chart, in essence, provides a good overview or a good snapshot of where the money is allocated to in OPP budgets. And just to break it down a little further here, so 65% of the money allocated, again, this is 2017-2018, it's for provincial and specialized responsibilities. So all those services there, and those are provincially mandated services that we have to provide and do provide. Such things as traffic safety, investigation, specialized investigations, intelligence, specialized response teams, so those tactics and rescue unit, the helicopter, K9 units, all sorts of stuff like that. And then we have the other side, which is again the municipal policing side of the house, and that makes up approximately 35%. And again, under this, these are the municipal policing resources section. These are the costs for municipal policing that are recovered from municipalities. And this includes the frontline detachment staff and the support positions that are required to meet the service demands. So there's a lot of stuff on the slide, but basically to give you a bit of context as why the OPP billing model was brought into being. The reality is prior to January 1st, 2015, we were operating under the old system. And there was a lot of issue taken up over the fact there was a number of issues, but one of the main issues was there was a wide variance in cost. So you had properties where, or you had municipalities where the per property cost could be anywhere from as low as $34 up to $895 per property. And so the idea was bringing this model in just to level the playing field. The Auditor General in 2012, he had a report, and I guess there were a number of concerns that were basically highlighted. And the recommendation was, there were two main ones. One was seek ways to simplify and make more transparent the OPP's cost recovery methods. And also to address issues in the billing method that resulted in municipalities paying vastly different rates. So on January 1st, 2015, the Ministry of Community Safety and Correctional Services introduced this new model for recovering policing costs from OPP municipal policing areas. And you'll see there were a number of consultations made, not only government ministries, but as well as municipalities themselves, municipal associations. And out of those consultations, again, this model came into being. So the billing model includes an equal base per property cost, and the other half essentially is a variable charge for calls for service that is based on the municipality's individual usage. Now there are other costs as well that are lumped into this, and I will get to explain those as we go along here. So the important thing to remember here is that, those two words underlined, provincially focused. So the OPP billing model is provincially focused, meaning it is based on the services that we provide to all municipalities that we recover policing costs from. So it divides the majority of the municipal OPP policing activities into two main categories, as you can see here. Base policing services, and then the other side is the calls for service, which is a variable usage type of category. So basic policing services here, as you can see, are what's listed there, and in essence they're the bricks and mortar of policing. These are the costs that are allocated amongst municipalities on an equal per property basis. It covers legislated activities such as crime prevention, general and directed patrol, officer availability to respond to emergency calls. It includes proactive patrol, ride programs, community policing, traffic safety, officer training and administrative duties, and all inspector and staff sergeant positions within those detachments. Then we have the calls for service. Again, these costs are allocated to municipalities based on their individual usage level. And these are the reactive calls that typically require an officer's attendance. Such things as thefts, motor vehicle collisions, assaults, general service calls, alarms, missing persons, provincial statutes, Mental Health Act, Trespass to Property Act. And then at the bottom there you can see the additional costs which are allocated to municipalities, and they're billed on their specific usage for those municipalities. So those things would be things such as overtime, court security, for those municipalities who actually have courts within your jurisdiction, and I believe Shelburne does not, so that would not actually apply. Cleaning and caretakers and accommodation for those municipalities who do not provide their own building. And enhancements as well. And prisoner transportation. All municipalities pay for prisoner transportation on a per property cost. So the total cost of base services allocated amongst municipalities is on an equal per property basis, and we use Municipal Property Assessment Corporation data, or MPAC data. The counts include households as well as commercial and industrial properties, and these counts are updated annually. So for example, for 2019, the numbers are based on the 2017 year-end numbers for the 2018 taxation year. That's what we base the MPAC numbers on. Now this can get a little complicated in terms of explaining the calls for service side of the billing. But we'll try to break it down here with this pie chart. To understand how the OPP calculates the cost for calls for service, and again, I'm going to use this chart for illustration purposes. Each one of those pieces of pie is a representative of a municipality. Of course, we have many more municipalities as are represented here, so this is just for illustration purposes. So let's consider the pie chart as representing the total waited time calculated for the entire province, okay? And these are for municipalities that receive OPP policing services in a given year. So for example, for 2019, right now, we are estimated at 1.6 million calls for service hours. Again, this is for all the municipalities that are policed by the OPP, and that's at a cost of $156 million. So each municipality is represented by a single piece of this pie. As a reminder, these costs are allocated to municipalities based on their individual usage level. So a municipality pays a proportionate share of the total cost of the municipal calls for service calculated for all OPP placement municipalities. This is calculated based on weighted time standards applied to a 4-year rolling average of the number of calls for service. So for 2019, this would be based on the average calls of service for the years, from the years 2014 to 2017. And again, that just rolls along as you proceed along. And primarily that's used for controlling costs to have it less volatile. If you have spikes from year to year, again, conceivably you have costs that would be spiking as well. But the average allows less volatility in terms of costs. So again, for illustration purposes, as represented by the green slice, this particular municipality's proportionate share, and let's use an example here, is the weighted time is actually calculated at 0.4984%, again, of that total from the province. So 0.4984% equals 7,997 hours, which translates into a total of $781,000 of calls for service costs for that municipality for that given year. For the 2019 cost recovery under the billing model, this chart breaks down the total municipal cost recovery into the various cost components. And again, this is for 2019 estimates. So we're using the rounded figures here. The total cost recovery for OPP police municipalities is $410 million. And this is divided into the following. As you can see, for base services, that's $216 million. The calls for service component is $156 million. And then other costs are $38 million. So those would be the ones listed there: overtime, court security, prisoner transportation. And again, as a reminder, this is for all municipalities that we police in the province. So this chart provides a historical summary of both total cost recoveries for OPP municipal policing, which you can see in blue, and then the average cost per property for OPP police municipalities that you can see in red. As you can see there, for 2019, the average cost per property for OPP police municipalities is $359. Now that's the base and calls for service combined. So as one can see, you can see that the cost per property have been relatively stable for the last number of years. So as noted, since the inception of the billing model in 2015, recoveries have increased by approximately 4.3%, with an annualized increase of 0.86%. Now, keep in mind, the primary drivers behind the increase, at the blue indicators there that of the total cost recoveries, the primary drivers for those are increase in salaries, as well as increase in the number of properties that are policed by the OPP. So additional cost components. So overtime. Municipalities are billed for overtime from occurrences in their geographic area, and a portion of their detachment overtime not linked to any specific municipality, which is training and administrative duties. Overtime recoveries are limited to municipal detachment staff, and it excludes overtime incurred for provincial obligations. So for instance, if you have a major occurrence that requires a number of provincially mandated units, as I indicated a few slides in with those specialty units, helicopter, canine, tactical team, those specialty units, those overtime is not incurred by the municipality. Those would fall under their units' obligations. So for court security, again, just for your information, because again, I know there's no courthouse in Shelburne, but for municipalities that do have a courthouse, they are responsible under the Police Services Act to provide the court security, and there's a cost to that. And that wouldn't apply here. Prisoner transportation. The total cost of providing prisoner transportation across the province is determined based on the cost of the municipal FTEs providing the service and allocated to all municipalities on an equal per property basis. Accommodation cleaning. These charges do not apply to municipalities that have their own accommodation or cleaning services. The municipal portion of the cost of provincially owned detachment facilities is allocated to municipalities on an equal per property basis. And dedicated enhancements. So for Section 10 contract municipalities, and again, there's a bit of a difference. Right now, currently, there are in essence, with OPP police municipalities, you have two streams, for lack of a better term, I guess. The first one is Section 10 municipalities who actually sign a written contract that can be anywhere from 3 to 6 years. And then you have the other stream, which is what we call a non-contract location. And they have, basically, as it's indicated, there's no contract with the OPP, and we simply provide the services. Now, the only difference, there's no difference in terms of cost recovery. The cost is essentially the same. But if you are in a contract situation with the OPP, you do have a number of options for a few, shall we say, extra things, such as possibilities for contract enhancements. So if municipalities do see a need to consider an enhanced position, keep in mind that the enhanced positions are not designed to boost the front line of the actual detachment. It would be to specifically address a specific need that the municipality sees as a concern. So for example, traffic safety, school resource officer, that would be up to the municipality to understand what their issues were, and then in consultation with the OPP there would be a possibility of considering an enhancement. As well as there's options for applying for certain grants under a section, if you have a Section 10 contract. That's essentially it for enhancements. I just want to draw your attention to these online resources. Again, they're very helpful, particularly if you see the top link, the OPP billing model. This, again, will give you a lot more information on what I've provided and presented to you tonight. There's a number of charts and a number of information on there that gives you a bit more of a background, a bit more information. But again, those are always helpful resources to tap into. And other than that, that is essentially it. I'm open to any sort of questions that you may have.
Okay, thanks, Ken. Are there any questions from council members? Walter.
On the enhancements that you were speaking about, the school resource officer. So if we were to ask for an officer for the high school, for example, like currently we have 4 times a week, that's an enhancement?
No, that's not an enhancement. That would be included in the base service in essence. And again, I can't give you specific details, but I know, again, in some municipalities, they have a dedicated officer to address, full-time in the schools. Again, that would be an enhanced position, but when if you want an officer throughout as you say, throughout the week, every now and again to check in, that wouldn't be normally considered an enhancement.
And going on with the enhancement, if we want a traffic officer other than the 2 or whatever patrols we currently have in the town, those are considered enhancements if we want to control certain streets that have traffic issues, correct? That thought process?
Again, not necessarily. I mean, the idea is the base service should cover that, right? I mean, base service includes, and again, I won't go back to the slide, but the base service includes providing traffic safety, traffic enforcement. Sorry, go back. Yeah. Oh, okay.
No, I
yeah. But in some areas you might have, a 2 or 3 person unit that goes and again, within a certain municipality will target certain areas, and I mean, they would obviously be open and respond to certain specific complaints. But at least I want to make it very clear that enhancements aren't designed to, I guess, like I say, bolster the front line. Again, frontline duties, the expectation and the base services include the necessity for us to provide traffic safety as one of those obligations, if that makes sense.
Okay. And one more question if I can. We have events, festivals, whatnot, where we close the highways. Would that fall under the base, or would that be something else?
Linda, I would think that would be included.
I'm just not sure if I understand the question. So if you're closing the highway,
Yeah.
you're basically just having officers there to reroute?
Yes.
So depending on the detachment commander, you would liaise with them and let them know what was going on. If there was sufficient staff on duty, then they would just arrange for that to happen. If for some reason there wasn't sufficient staff on duty, they could arrange to either have staff come in, or it could be considered a paid duty, depending on how the municipality and the detachment commander both thought it would be best to handle.
Okay.
And I might just add for clarification, because we've been talking a lot about the school resource officer, and whether it's an enhancement or whether it's not. Technically, no municipality needs enhancements. School resource positions are provided in a normal detachment setting. It's just they're not doing it every single hour of their shift. They're participating and going to the schools and visiting the schools, but on another portion of their shift, they might be responding to calls. Enhancements are when you want someone dedicated 100% to doing that particular function. Same with traffic safety or patrolling on roads. That's part of a police officer's job and part of a detachment commander's responsibility to make sure that gets done. But you don't necessarily have someone doing it for their entire shift 40 hours a week. They're also responding to calls for service. The enhancement is when you want someone dedicated to that in your municipality only. That's why you would be paying extra for an enhancement, if that helps at all.
So for example, one of the local schools, Primrose, is located in Mulmer Township, which is policed by OPP. So there are officers from the detachment that go and do programs at Primrose periodically.
Yep, we have a school resource officer right now. She's multiple hats. She wears a media officer, and she teaches the OPP Kids program as well as a number of other programs. So she has a set curriculum that she teaches at each school, elementary school, and then she goes and does other presentations on demand or as seen fit by the schools ask her if she can do it. But she also has a number of other responsibilities.
And Mulmer Township would not be billed as an enhancement
That's
for
correct.
that service, is what you're saying? Okay.
That's correct.
Okay. But if we wanted somebody whose sole job was to be a school resource officer, then that would be an
That would be there every day from 8 till 4:30, and if there was something that broke, that went crazy, and they wouldn't be responding to calls for service, they'd be staying there at the school, possibly, depending on the nature of the situation, but their focus is specifically that one task. That's what an enhancement does. But all of these services are provided at various different levels through a normal detachment. There is traffic safety, there are officers visiting schools. It's just they're not doing it for 40 hours a week.
Walter?
Foot patrols are not part of base service.
Yes, they are. Patrolling is
Yes.
part of base service.
So we would have foot patrols throughout the town as well.
Yeah, and it'd be important to communicate that obviously through, the usual method would be through your police services board to liaise with the detachment commander to identify those issues and such things as foot patrol. But for sure, that's considered base.
You had mentioned, Ken, that the average cost per household in Ontario this year is, I think it was $359. That's across the board, across the province. Now, I'm assuming there's a big range there given the size and nature of communities. Is there any way to kind of drill down and see what a closer comparator might be to a town like Shelburne? I'm assuming a rural municipality would be a lot cheaper to police than a town like ours.
Yeah, and it depends again from municipality to municipality. I can't give you direct figures right now, and I can certainly send you the link, but they're all online. So again, that link, I think at the end, so the top one, oppa.ca/billing model. If you go in, there's actually a link that gives you all the OPP police municipalities in the entire province. You can actually, I believe it's on an Excel spreadsheet, is it not? So you can actually sort and filter. And so you can go in and actually sort and filter specific municipalities all over the province and see over the last, I believe it's 3 or 4 years.
And it will list the number of properties, so you can pick one with similar characteristics.
And it'll give you per property cost, it'll give you their annual costs, and all that information to make those comparisons.
One other question. At the initial presentation that was delivered in January, Staff Sergeant Crandall discussed a little bit about how the zone model would work. So if Shelburne did go OPP, there would be, I think, a 4th zone designated within Dufferin County, sort of unto ourselves. So Shelburne proper would become a new zone. Can you just explain again how that zone system works, like in terms of deployment? So what are the residents of Shelburne going to see on a day-to-day basis in terms of the presence of officers?
So it'd be the town, as its boundaries are, as they exist right now, would be the boundaries of Zone 4. So we have 3 existing zones now. Mono and Mulmer is in Zone 1, Melanchthon and Amaranth is Zone 2, and Grand Valley, East Garifraxa, and East Luther are in Zone 3. So they're separated out by municipal codes, and then at the beginning of each shift, or however the sergeants determine for the day or the week, officers are assigned to patrol in that zone. So they're given their daily assignments, be it proactive policing or follow-up, and then they work within their zone. Sometimes they would have to leave their zone to go to court, or if there's a big call on the highway and I need a bunch of resources, then they would leave to go and do the call on the highway and then come back. For example, if something happened out on 89, right at First Line or something, and they would come back. But basically, for the purposes of operations, the officers would be assigned within the town to work in the town. And then they would be assigned to do their foot patrol, their community policing, the follow-up, or whatever the case may be. But they would be just like the other zones. The officers are assigned every day to the zone. And then some platoons the officers prefer to work the same zone all the time to get to know the people. Other officers prefer to work one zone for a month, another zone for another month to get to know the whole community. Is that helpful?
And how many officers would be dedicated to each zone for a given shift? I mean, I understand you say they may have to move around, but
3.
Or hold on a second, let me just double check that, because I think it was 2 actually, now that the original presentation. It was 5, plus I just had that org chart. It was 2 officers in that zone. Because you would currently have,
okay. So at the start of a shift, 2 officers would be deployed to Zone 4, which would be Shelburne, and they would stay there for the duration of the shift, unless, as you said, you needed them,
Correct.
somewhere else for an accident or something.
Correct. I can use an example, and I have Staff Sergeant Sanderson here. I can use the example of Bolton in Caledon. So Caledon is separated also into 4 zones, and the town of Bolton itself is Zone 4. So they have a staggered shift pattern there because there's more officers assigned. It's a bigger community. So what happens is the officers stay in Bolton until the next shift officers get there, and then those shift officers come back, and there's a little bit of overlap. And so there's always somebody in town. It'd be a little bit harder to have them all here and do that shift alignment, but we just have one officer or a team, however it's going to work out, so that you have people here in town all the time.
Okay. Any other questions from council? Walter?
Yeah, police checks right now are done here in the town. If they wanted, a citizen of the town wanted to do a police check, they'd have to go to Primrose, am I correct in that thought, to the detachment office?
For now?
No, if we went OPP.
Yes.
If we were to go OPP, they would have to go to Primrose. Am I correct in that thought process?
For now. However, there is a change coming in the provincial criminal record check process, and at some point in the near future, no one will have to go to the police station to do it. You'll be able to do it online.
Like you do Service Ontario.
Pardon me?
Like Service Ontario, you can do everything online.
Correct, yeah. So people who want a criminal record check would have to have access to a computer, and they can make their application online.
Part of council's public engagement process, so that's going to go live Wednesday morning, and it will run until May 31st. So in addition to next Wednesday's meeting, please, by all means, sign up for the survey, get on there, express your thoughts. Is there going to be a place to ask questions on there, or is it just to offer comments? Okay, so survey with set questions, and then also an opportunity to offer any free style comments that you may want to make. All right, so I think we'll take about a 5-minute break, and we'll reconvene in the council chambers for the balance of the meeting. Thanks very much.